Greetings, everyone. Welcome back. I've got Zachary Helms here today, who started his trade compliance career and just took the October 2025 licensed customs broker exam. So, we're going to talk all about that in his career and his journey. So, welcome, Zach.
Yes, thank you for having me. I'm glad to be on.
Great. So, just a quick maybe introduction and what you do, Zach.
So I started trade compliance about 2.5, 3 years ago. Started more in the operational compliance kind of side of things with warehouses doing OSHA, GMP, those kinds of deals. Moved back to North Carolina to be near my family. Found a job doing trade compliance. Got started kind of bottom level, just learning from the beginning, learning 7501s, learning the regulations. And now that I feel like I've gotten a good amount of experience, I found the customs broker license. Thought it would be an interesting opportunity for me to expand my career, expand my knowledge, and took the exam here recently. Went through a course, and I feel like it's done a lot to help my career as well. So,
Great. Sounds good. Now, you're originally from North Carolina, is that right?
well, I'm originally from Baltimore. I've lived all over though. My family moved me to North Carolina when I was around end of middle school, high school. My parents still live here, but after college, I kind of bounced around for work. I lived in Michigan. I lived in uh, the Oakland area in California. I lived in Mississippi and Oxford. I've lived in Florida for a little bit. I mean, I've lived just about anywhere and everywhere. But honestly, I feel like North Carolina is a place I like to call home. I really love the area. The weather's better than most of the other places I've been,
Oh,
so I really enjoy it.
that's amazing. Jeez, that's crazy that you moved around so much. So, where did you go to high school and then college?
So high school was interesting. I actually went to what we call here an early college. So it's public in the fact that you don't have to pay for it, but you have to apply to get in. You essentially go through your first 2 years standard high school normal experience, and then the last 2 years I spent on a college campus, taking college classes on a smaller load than you normally would when you actually go to college. So I was able to finish high school with about a year and a half, 2 years of credits before I actually got into college. Saved me a lot of time, saved me a lot of money. I ended up going to Campbell University. It's a small private university here in North Carolina. I just didn't want to go to a big school. The idea of having to like drive or sprint to my classes didn't really feel like good for me. I toured UNC and NC State and all the big universities, and they just weren't really for me as much. So went to a smaller private university. Actually majored in sports management. At the beginning, I thought I wanted to be in the sports sides of things until I got to my senior year, and they started expressing to me that most sports jobs are, including weekends, likely going to be working up to around 60 hours a week. And I like to have a life. So I ended up moving more into just standard business because what the sports management thing is essentially was a business degree, just more sports focused. You learn things like stadium operations, learning how an actual team runs behind the scenes, but it's essentially a business operations degree. So
Okay.
yeah.
So then, after college, did you kind of get in what the field that you wanted to, or did you kind of go through a couple different jobs before you landed on something that you're more interested in?
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely didn't see compliance as something I would like to do. I was just struggling to find a job when I first got out of college. So after about 6 months, my brother actually had just started up a company and needed somebody to do the compliance end of things. Like I said, with the warehouse kind of side of things, with OSHA, GMP, and all the various regulations that he had going on with that. So it gave me an opportunity to just have a job at the moment. Moved to Michigan to work with him doing that, and just kind of fell in love with it. Honestly, I've always been a bit of a stickler for making sure things are done the right way. I've a big proponent of making sure the T's are crossed, the I's are dotted, making sure that things are done in the right way. So it's become something that I didn't envision myself doing, but became something that I actually enjoyed doing as I got to know it more.
Yeah, I think your journey is pretty common. Most people don't know what trade
Hmm.
compliance, never heard of it, especially in high school,
Yep.
college, and then they get out in the workforce and they stumble upon it. Is kind of pretty much how they get into it.
Yep. Yeah, I kind of joked around with some of the other people that I've met through either conferences or on LinkedIn and stuff like that. And we kind of joke that like nobody ever chooses compliance. You kind of just fall into it.
Exactly.
It is definitely something that's a field that I feel like should be talked about more just because it could fit a good amount of personalities and people who enjoy this kind of lane of work. But it is definitely something that you don't think about as you're growing up.
Yeah, exactly. All right, so then you're working at that compliance position, and then is that how you jump into the customs broker exam, or how did that come about?
Yeah, so I was just kind of browsing the internet, looking for certifications, looking for trainings, just kind of trying to find ways to expand my knowledge, expand my career, expand my resume kind of uh, operations, and just kind of found it by accident. Um, Through looking, I realized that it was probably the most comprehensive and also being, federally backed, especially a national kind of deal. I realized that it would probably be the most universal opportunity for me. It also was the most intensive training that I could get. So I felt like instead of having to do this program and this training and that training, I was able to just kind of hone in on this one thing and ended up being correct in that I feel like the courses that I've taken to get prepared for this exam has taught me more about my job than I could have imagined it would when I started.
Hmm. Okay. And then, did you know any customs brokers or the industry or anything like that, or more of you just kind of stumble upon the exam?
I've kind of talked to people about it before. I didn't really know exactly what they were talking about. Because we work with freight forwarders where I'm at. I've had different people that I've spoken to in the industry going to conferences or different training sessions with them with our freight forwarders using companies like Expeditors via Alexander, a few others that we've used to kind of learn about what they're doing on their end, just so I can kind of better understand how to communicate with them. And then through that, have kind of stumbled upon what this exam is and learned that it actually is something that, even though I'm not necessarily a customs broker at the moment, it helps train you in customs as a whole and expands my knowledge to a point where I can help our company take advantage of some things that I didn't previously understand.
Okay, very well. Now, so take me along that journey of when you're doing your research. Where did you find information on the exam, about the industry? Was it LinkedIn, YouTube? And what program did you ultimately choose to prepare for the exam?
Yeah, so I would say honestly, the US Customs website was where I got most of my understanding of the exam. In and again, kind of stumbled upon it by finding another certification that stated, when I was reading what the certification entailed, it mentioned at the very end that if you have a customs broker license, you can get grandfathered in. And I was like, well, then I need to look up this customs broker license because why would I take a certification and then take the customs broker license exam when I could just take the customs broker license exam and then automatically qualify for this certification and go backwards the other way?
Hmm.
So in doing research, I actually found on Reddit people just talking about the exam and the different courses that they've taken. The one I ended up choosing was called CBP, CB Prep Course with Tom O'Leary. I feel like his entire course is extremely comprehensive. It's extremely easy to use. He has his own platform where he has chapters that he's broken up, like such as quotas, warehouses, trade programs. He kind of breaks them all up into categories. He has a video, a study guide, and a practice exam for each of the different categories. With the practice exams, essentially what he's done is taken the posted questions and answers from previous exams going back to about 2018 on the custom site that you can find and kind of formatted them into an exam that you can take online. I think he's done a really good job building the program. He's been doing customs for many, many years, holds many live as well as online webinars. Um, so he's definitely a very comprehensive guy. He super easy to work with, very personable. I've noticed in phone calls and emails, he's very quick to answer, is willing to answer just about any question, have a 30-minute conversation with you if you need to. He's a great guy to be able to help you out. He even helped me out. I'd say I just emailed him the day before the exam, and I don't know if it's just connections that he has or different things, but he gave me a heads up saying that, hey, I've gotten word that maybe they might test on continued education, which they've never really previously tested on the idea of continuing education for a customs broker. But he was right. I got into the exam and there were 5 questions on continued education, which is a substantial part of the exam when you're considering the 80 questions and how many you have to get right. So by just talking to him and getting that heads up, and he handed me the reference and the CFR that I could go to, and I bookmarked it real quick the night before. I mean, that
Oh,
saved me on those 5 questions.
that's amazing. Yeah, I've heard of him, and I know of a former colleague that used his program, has nothing but good things to say about it. So,
Hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
okay, can you take me back about maybe deciding on taking the exam? How long did you study for, and what was the process for registration? Was it pretty straightforward, or?
Yeah, so with registration, I feel like it was pretty easy. The main thing was that they had a webinar from Customs themselves before the exam. So I felt like that gave me a good understanding from their perspective what things were going to look like. Honestly, I feel like they've done a pretty good job. I've heard in the past it's been tricky, but from my experience doing it only this one time, that I believe that it was pretty straightforward. Their system was pretty easy in trying to find like what's my nearest testing center, sign up there. I got a bunch of reminders from them, a lot of communication from them directly on, where I need to go, what I need to bring. And I feel like the webinar that they put on was very comprehensive in terms of explaining, what documents do you need to bring for test day, what they recommend in terms of like the crates that you should bring your materials in, and different things like that. So I feel like signing up was fairly easy, um, and the after process again seems fairly open and good for their communication, because they talk about sending you your answers afterwards. I wrote down all my answers just in case. They didn't send it right away, but right when I got done the test, I think maybe 2 hours later, they handed me, a PDF version of all my answers, so that way I can go back and actually check and make sure that everything is correct later on. But yeah, I think the experience of going on and getting the exam scheduled and taken was fairly easy.
Okay. And then how much time did you devote? I mean, were you pretty committed, devoted during this thing, or is it more of you did it on the side, or?
Yeah, so I kind of joined the whole entire thing a little late. I signed up at the very end of July for the exam course. So, I mean, I really only had two and a half, just under 3 months
Wow.
to study. Thankfully, August and September were not very busy months for me. I was able to dedicate a decent amount of time. I feel like honestly, it was just because of how structured the course that I took was. It was easy for me to set goals in terms of, instead of thinking about it as like time, it was like, let me complete this section by this date. Let me complete this section by this date. And so some of them went by quicker, some of them went by longer. Some days I spent 30 minutes, some days I spent 2, 3 hours. So I really kind of just did it as much as I could. I didn't really force myself to jam it in my schedule as much as I humanly could. I still obviously have things going on in my own life. Um, I got a lot of things that I do outside of work, and just life comes up. So there's weeks where I just had nothing going on and I was able to dedicate a decent amount of time, and then there was weeks where it felt like I really only spent an hour, maybe two, on it the entire week.
Mm.
So I'd say overall somewhere in the neighborhood of like 50 to 75 total hours.
Wow.
I would say over the course of the past 3 months. Definitely more time in the past couple of weeks trying to cram things in as much as I could. I had the course completed, but trying to take as many practice exams as I could and just kind of refresh myself with what exactly the exam looks like. Maybe not so much the questions themselves, but just understanding like how the format is, what language they kind of use to ask questions, those kinds of things. Just kind of familiarize myself with the test. But yeah, I'd say somewhere in the neighborhood of I tried to do as much as I could without forcing it, if that makes sense.
Sure. Yeah, that's a pretty typical. What you're most people aim for about 100 hours. Seems like you did a little bit less, but the whole thing is taking exams and then familiarizing yourself with the layout, the questions, and how some of the trappings that they get you on.
Hmm.
So that's probably
Yeah, for
a big
sure.
part of it. And
Hmm.
then, of course, we don't know what the results are yet, but are you feeling pretty confident? What's your feelings?
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely feel really confident about it. I hate to use the word easy because it was not an easy exam, but based on what I've heard from the previous exams, based on looking at the previous exams that they've posted, this specific one I feel like was a lot more straightforward. I didn't feel like there were as many questions where they were trying to trip you up. It didn't feel like there was as many like flowery language questions. The classification questions were fairly straightforward. A lot of them were taken directly from the section notes. Now, that might be a thing that might trip some people up, but if you were able to remember to check the section notes before, a lot of them were like directly taken from the section notes. So I just feel like the exam, if you obviously it's a difficult exam in general. It is a very difficult exam, but in terms of their usual kind of tricky natured questions, I felt like there was less of those.
Very well. Yeah, good point. All right, and then officially you'll know in 2 weeks since you just took the exam. What was this
Yep.
last past week, right? Or is it?
Yeah, it was this Wednesday,
Yeah, I was gonna say.
22nd.
Okay, well, good. And we'll look forward to seeing the results and hearing back from that. So let's look ahead now. What are your plans? Are you at a position where you want to stay? Are you looking to do other things, or what? Maybe describe a little bit of that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm still a younger guy. 27 at the moment. Still looking to expand my career as much as I can. I absolutely love where I'm at in terms of a company. The people are amazing. The company is amazing. They take care of us so much. I could go on and on for hours talking about all the different things that they do to create a good workplace and take care of their employees in general. Um, it's fantastic what they've created in terms of a work environment, but at the end of the day, when it comes to my career, I still want to expand as much as I can. I want to be able to um, I've been in manager positions before. I want to get back to that level now that I'm in customs compliance specifically. I want to be able to expand those things for, building up my family, giving them as many opportunities as I can. Being able to provide for, kids is a big thing eventually that you start thinking about. About places and experiences that different people have had. But in my experience, when it comes to these bigger companies, when it comes to the business end of things, I haven't had those bad experiences. Maybe I'm just a little bit lucky. But most places I've been, it seems like, most people just want to get the work done and get better. So,
All right, before we take off, any advice you would have, Zach, whether it be professionally, or maybe the exam for someone that's maybe 2 to 5 years behind you that's kind of interested in
Mhm.
this type of career?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say just try and do as much as you can to learn on your own. It is a business that has a lot of intricacies that you may not see on a day-to-day basis. But they are things that can expand your knowledge and really help you take advantage of things that may otherwise not have been thought about. The way I like to explain it is that compliance is something that other people just don't want to think about. There's a reason why they hire us, and it's because they want us to deal with it, not them. It's kind of similar to hiring lawyers where they don't understand the law, but they want to hire somebody that does, and having a good lawyer can make all the difference in the world. So when it comes to looking into compliance, when it comes to customs compliance specifically, just try and get yourself familiar with as well as freight. I think freight forwarding, like the idea of the freight world, like Incoterms and things like that, kind of get overlooked. Try and expand your knowledge as much as you can in those areas. Look into the idea of like warehouses, foreign trade zones. A lot of businesses are starting to take advantage of those things. I've been asked those questions, kinds of questions on interviews a lot, like my about my knowledge of foreign trade zones and things like that, like places like IBM. And I had an interview once with Michaels, and they have a lot of product that they bring into a foreign trade zone to have until they need it, and then they'll pull it out and use it. But I would say specifically when it comes to the exam, I think a lot of people kind of